What happens when the city that never sleeps is suddenly drowning in red ink? Las Vegas, once a shimmering mirage built on cheap thrills and endless swarms of people, is now haunted by the ghosts of empty hotel rooms, shuttered condos, and foreclosure signs that have become the new one-armed bandits, permanently stuck on lose. The lifeblood of this city, the tourists, is hemorrhaging at an alarming rate. The housing market isn't just cracking, it's imploding under the weight of its own lies. And behind the neon glow, the very people who make this city run are being purged from the payrolls. Is Sin City on an irreversible death spiral toward becoming a modern-day ghost town? You need to pay attention because the catastrophe unfolding in Vegas is a terrifying preview for the rest of us. And the most chilling revelation is yet to come. Number 9. The catastrophic collapse of hotel occupancy. Just imagine the scene. The 4th of July, a weekend that should have been the glittering peak of the Vegas calendar. You'd expect fireworks, overflowing pools, and casinos packed to the rafters. Instead, in 2025, the city's occupancy rate didn't just dip, it plummeted by a staggering 16.8%. This left a pathetic 66.7% of rooms filled. Let me be clear. This isn't a bad holiday weekend. This is a code red nightmare for a city engineered to run on packed hotels and relentless human churn. To understand the scale of this disaster, weekend occupancy on the Strip hadn't fallen below 90% for years. When America's so-called party capital can't even fill its rooms for Independence Day, you know something is fundamentally deeply broken. And why should you care? Because hotel occupancy isn't just a metric, it is the very heartbeat of Las Vegas. Every single empty room is a cancer cell, spreading through the system. Fewer gamblers bleeding money into slots. Fewer diners lining up for overpriced buffets. Fewer seats filled at shows. For years, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority arrogantly boasted about their near-perfect weekend capacity. Well, those days are a bitter memory. Now, with occupancy rates in freefall, the casino overlords are trapped in a self-inflicted death spiral. Slash the workforce to protect their profits, which absolutely demolishes service quality, which in turn repels the few remaining visitors. We're already witnessing the shadowy purges at major resorts like the Cosmopolitan. Over 200 housekeepers, gone, just like that. When the workers who create the magic vanish, the entire Vegas illusion shatters. And believe me, it isn't just the tourists who are noticing this decay. One limo driver confessed his business is completely evaporating, while his partner at the casino desperately scrambles for a dwindling number of shifts. This toxic ripple effect is poisoning the entire valley. You see it in the ghostly quiet on Fremont Street, the eerie lack of cars on the Strip, and the local businesses now starving for the cash that once flowed as freely as champagne in a high roller suite. If this city cannot fill its hotels, the entire ecosystem doesn't just crack, it shatters. And tragically, this occupancy crisis is merely the first domino to fall. The real horror story is unfolding behind the neon facade, invading people's homes, their mortgages, and the terrifying resurgence of foreclosures. But before we delve into that nightmare, I need to hear from you. Have you been to Vegas lately? Have you witnessed the desolate hotel floors, the pathetic service, or the insulting price hikes? Share your story in the comments. Your eyewitness accounts are crucial to exposing the grim reality of this city's decay. Number 8. The foreclosure tsunami. Picture yourself driving through any Las Vegas suburb, but instead of for sale signs, you're confronted by a sickening wall of foreclosure notices. This isn't a hypothetical, it is the brutal new reality in Nevada, a state that now holds the shameful title of leading the entire nation in homes teetering on the brink of default. In a single devastating recent month, more than 2,326 properties right here in the valley were slapped with foreclosure filings. To grasp the severity, consider that Florida, another foreclosure disaster zone, posted similar numbers for its entire state. But here, Las Vegas alone is screaming a red alert warning of another catastrophic housing collapse. So, how did we get to this precipice? It's because the dream of homeownership in Las Vegas has been systematically dismantled. According to damning reports from the Review Journal and the Daily Mail, a family now requires an obscene income of around $130,000 a year just to scrape by and afford a median-priced home. But the very people who power this city, the casino workers, even with 2 incomes, fall short by tens of thousands of dollars. It's a cruel, impossible equation. You're paid service industry wages while being expected to cover a mortgage demanding a 6-figure salary. The math was never meant to add up for them. So families are bled dry and forced into a predatory rental market. And who profits from this misery? The vultures. Faceless hedge funds and investment giants, swooping in to snatch up hundreds, even thousands of homes only to rent them back to the very locals they displaced. The American dream of owning a slice of Las Vegas is being systematically executed and replaced by a cold corporate landlord dystopia. And here is the truly terrifying part. This foreclosure tsunami isn't just about real estate. It's a blaring siren for a full-blown recession. Economists have a chilling indicator for this, known as the SOM rule, which directly links spikes in unemployment to the imminent arrival of a recession. With unemployment on the Strip already surging past a dangerous 5.8% and layoffs spreading like a contagion through the resorts. With foreclosures skyrocketing, Vegas isn't just failing to recover, it's a screaming harbinger of doom for the entire American housing market. For anyone who lived through the last disaster, this is a horrifying echo of the past. Back in 2008, Las Vegas was the epicenter of the Great Housing Collapse. We saw entire neighborhoods turn into ghost towns, property values decimated by a staggering 60%, and abandoned homes standing as grim monuments to the Great Recession. Now, all those terrifying warning signs are flashing red once again. Mountains of unsold homes are rotting on the market, with over 70% of listings attracting absolutely no interest, forcing desperate families to abandon the dream of home ownership they can no longer afford. The Strip may glitter with false promises, but just beyond the neon glow, a terrifying darkness of despair is consuming entire communities. And if you think this foreclosure nightmare is the worst of it, just wait, because this economic cancer is viciously attacking the very people who keep this city breathing. Number 7, the Strip's secret purge of its own workers. The neon signs still burn bright, a perfect facade for the ugly truth. Behind the scenes, thousands of loyal Vegas employees are being systematically erased from the payrolls. The official story they're feeding you is an unemployment rate of 5.8%, a shocking jump from the low 3% range we saw before the chaos. But that's just the tip of a very dangerous iceberg. Because here is the bone-chilling reality they're desperate to hide. The true devastation isn't in any official report. It's in the covert, silent layoffs the casinos are executing in the shadows. Consider the Cosmopolitan, a beacon of supposed luxury on the Strip. The word on the street, whispered in fear, is that 200 housekeepers were unceremoniously thrown to the curb just this summer. There was no press conference, no headlines, just hardworking people suddenly fighting for scraps, for tips, for their very survival. And if you dare to believe this is just a one-off incident, you are dangerously mistaken. Vegas has a shameful history of concealing its job cuts until the crisis becomes undeniable. From the cocktail servers to the limo drivers, an entire class of workers is watching their livelihoods evaporate, while visitors are met with infuriatingly long lines, filthier rooms, and a level of service that's a pathetic ghost of what Vegas once was. This goes beyond a simple labor dispute. This is a full-blown identity crisis. The very reputation of Las Vegas was forged in the fires of impeccable service. The charismatic blackjack dealer, the flawlessly clean suite waiting for you after a long night, the cocktail waitress who knew your name and your drink. When you gut that workforce, you are ripping the very soul out of this city. When a guest shells out $400 for a single night, only to receive service you'd expect from a discount bin, they're not coming back. They're taking their money and their loyalty elsewhere. To Miami, to Mexico, anywhere but here. But these layoffs are just one part of a much larger gathering storm. Across the nation, the tech industry has already hemorrhaged 95,000 jobs in 2024 alone. And now, the devastating shockwaves are crashing into destinations like Vegas. Families with collapsing budgets are canceling their vacations. Corporations are slashing their conferences. Even the Canadians, for so long a dependable lifeline for this city's economy, are abandoning Vegas, with airline passenger numbers plummeting by a catastrophic 20 to 30%. Fewer tourists means fewer shifts, trapping the city's workforce in a terrifying downward spiral. And what is the end game here? A city where dedicated workers have no idea if they'll have a job tomorrow. A city where homeowners can't count on a paycheck to pay their mortgage, and where visitors can no longer expect the world-class service that was once a guarantee. And if jobs are the backbone of this town, then that backbone is riddled with fractures. But this begs the ultimate terrifying question. When both tourism and labor are in freefall, what happens to a housing market that is already dangling by a thread over a cliff? The answer is a nightmare. Darker than the loneliest, most desolate street after the last light has died. Number 6, the Great Canadian Vanishing Act. For generations, Canadians were the absolute lifeblood of this city's tourism industry. From wild bachelor parties to winter escapes, their presence filled the strip with an energy and vitality, not to mention cash in an endless river of maple leaf credit cards. But now, in 2025, that critical pipeline has been violently shut off, and the numbers are nothing short of brutal. Airline data reveals a catastrophic plunge in direct flights from Canada, with some carriers reporting passenger volume has collapsed by 20 to 30%. Make no mistake, this isn't just a few less tourists. This represents millions upon millions in vanished revenue, because Canadians have always been the highest spending, most valuable international visitors. And why is this so critical? It's terrifyingly simple. Not all tourists are created equal. The weekend warrior from Southern California might grab a cheap room and share a buffet, but the Canadians, they fly in for the long haul. They stay longer and they bleed money on the big ticket shows, the fine dining, and most importantly, on the casino floors. Losing them isn't just a setback. It's like amputating the entire premium spending heart of Vegas's economy. Sure, you'll still see bodies shuffling down Fremont Street, but their wallets are empty, and the casinos are feeling that agony right where it counts. The bottom line. But the reasons for this mass exodus are a bitter cocktail of economic poison. The exchange rate alone is a brutal blow, with the Canadian loonie utterly crushed by the American dollar. And then you pile on the skyrocketing airfare, the predatory baggage fees, and the shameless nickel and diming culture that has infected Vegas. Resort fees, paid parking, $20 cocktails. Suddenly, the entire equation collapses for the average Canadian family. Why on earth would anyone burn $2,000 on a Vegas weekend when that same cash buys an all-inclusive paradise on a Mexican beach? But it's not just the money, it's the insidious rot in its reputation. Online forums are now a battleground, flooded with cautionary tales from Canadians detailing nightmarish border delays, invasive security checks, and the unrelenting financial assault on the Strip. The message is clear. They feel utterly unwelcome. The once celebrated, carefree spirit of Vegas has been systematically dismantled, replaced by a cold corporate machine engineered to bleed every last penny from your wallet. And that kind of sentiment spreads like a contagion. When Canadians pull the plug, it's not just one vacation disappearing, it's entire bachelor parties, massive family reunions, and the annual snowbird pilgrimages all wiped from the calendar. This catastrophic loss is already carving ugly scars into the Strip. High-end restaurants are staring at empty tables. Luxury retailers are watching impulse buyers evaporate. And even blockbuster show ticket sales are plummeting. Vegas can desperately try to plug the hole with domestic tourists, but the gaping chasm in spending is a wound that cannot be ignored. Canadians were once the life raft that kept this city's economy afloat during the lean seasons. Now their absence is just another gaping hole in a rapidly sinking ship. And believe me, if losing the Canadians was a gut punch, then this next crisis is a knockout blow. We're talking about the Las Vegas real estate market. A toxic collision of vacant homes and ludicrous prices, brewing a storm that threatens to shatter the very future of this city. Number 5. The housing market collapse. It's almost laughable now, but Las Vegas once arrogantly boasted about having one of the most explosive real estate markets in the entire nation. Homes were snatched up in mere days, ferocious bidding wars erupted in quiet suburbs, and predatory investors treated the valley like their personal monopoly board. But now, in 2025, the entire game has been shattered. A staggering 77% of homes on the market are sitting completely stagnant, gathering dust. This isn't a slowdown, it's total crippling paralysis. And why? Because the fundamental math is broken. Get this, recent reports reveal a household now needs to pull in an obscene $130,000 a year just to have a fighting chance at affording a home in Las Vegas. And yet, the average casino worker, the very backbone of this city, doesn't make a fraction of that. Even in households with 2 incomes, the vast majority of families are being priced out of their own city. When the Strip can't even provide stable jobs or decent tips, potential buyers are dead in the water. They simply can't qualify. The catastrophic result? Unsold listings are piling up like wreckage, and desperate price cuts are doing absolutely nothing to stop the bleeding. It's a terrifying sense that the dream of homeownership is not just slipping away, it's being violently ripped away. And here's the truly sinister twist. The vacuum left by local families is being filled by corporate vultures. Faceless hedge funds and massive investment groups are swooping in, devouring hundreds, even thousands of homes at a time, only to flip them into a permanent rental empire. For the ordinary resident, this means the door to ownership is being slammed shut, forcing them into a new serfdom where their rent checks are shipped directly to Wall Street. This is the sickening transformation from live in Vegas to lease from Vegas. And it's a cancer that completely erodes the stability that once made neighborhoods thrive. But this deep freeze in the housing market is more than a local problem. It's a terrifying warning sign for the entire economy. Real estate has always been the canary in the coal mine for this city. We all remember 2008, when Vegas was ground zero for the financial apocalypse, with home prices plummeting a catastrophic 60% and entire subdivisions decaying into ghost towns. And today, the same horrifying symptoms are reappearing. A glut of oversupply, demand that has fallen off a cliff, and foreclosures that are once again skyrocketing. You throw in crippling interest rates, and you've created a city where buying a home is financial suicide. The locals are completely trapped. Homeowners can't sell without taking a devastating financial hit, while renters are at the mercy of landlords who hike rates with impunity. And all the while, those glittering new luxury developments, once marketed to wealthy Californians, now stand as a monument to greed. They sit half empty, their million-dollar price tags a sick joke completely disconnected from the reality of local wages. Las Vegas was supposedly built on the promise of reinvention. But when the housing market completely seizes, that promise is exposed as nothing more than a cruel mirage. And if the very people who run this city can't afford to live here, you have to ask, who is Las Vegas even for anymore? The answer is more disturbing than you can imagine, and it leads us directly to our next point of failure. A city built on the flimsy facade of cars, tourists, and neon lights is now watching its very infrastructure crumble under the crushing weight of its own decline. Number 4, infrastructure on the brink of collapse. Let's be brutally honest. Las Vegas was designed to dazzle you with spectacle, not to function as a real city that moves people efficiently from point A to point B. For decades, the city got by on the cheap trick of budget flights and sprawling, ugly parking garages to keep the tourist machine churning. But in 2025, the deep structural cracks in that foundation are impossible to ignore. Now visitors are recoiling at the extortionate costs of simply getting around, while the locals are left to suffer the consequences of an infrastructure that isn't just stretched thin, it's at its absolute breaking point. A city that's become not just outdated, but actively hostile to the very people it relies on. First, let's dissect the transportation nightmare. There was a time, a distant memory now, when you could park your car for free at nearly any resort on the Strip. A simple courtesy that made the whole trip feel a little more welcoming. But today, that courtesy has been systematically replaced by blatant extortion, with parking fees skyrocketing to an outrageous $25 to $30 a day. For a family driving in from California, that's a financial gut punch before they've even dragged their luggage to the front desk. Add to that the $50 rideshare shakedown from the airport thanks to predatory surge pricing, and the entire illusion of an affordable getaway shatters completely. And then you're thrown into the chaos of the traffic. The Strip itself has devolved into a choked, gridlocked catastrophe, a chaotic battleground where rideshares, delivery vans, and endless construction projects wage war over every inch of asphalt. Tourists now report the soul-crushing reality of spending as much time trapped in a rideshare as they do at the gaming tables. And that so-called revolution from Elon Musk's Boring Company tunnels? It was sold as a futuristic solution, but it's nothing more than a glorified, severely limited gimmick. It's a high-tech shuttle connecting a few convention stops. A pathetic band-aid for a sprawling metropolis of 2.9 million people. And make no mistake, the locals aren't escaping this nightmare. Their daily commutes are stretching into agonizingly long ordeals as unchecked suburban sprawl swallows any hope of road expansion. The public transit system? It's a skeletal disgrace compared to any other major city, leaving the vast majority of residents shackled to their vehicles, prisoners of soaring insurance premiums and ever-climbing gas prices. There was a time when the city's explosive growth seemed to justify these massive infrastructure gambles. But now, with tourism faltering and the housing market freezing over, pouring money into these projects looks less like a wise investment and more like a desperate, high-stakes bet against the house. For visitors, the frustration is a slow-burning fuse. Imagine shelling out thousands on flights, hotels, and those insidious resort fees, only to be bled dry by 1,000 tiny cuts, from parking scams to rideshare gouging and hidden surcharges at every turn. But for the people who actually live here, it's infinitely worse. They are trapped, forced to subsidize a system built entirely for tourists, a system from which they receive almost none of the benefits. Infrastructure might not have the glitter of a casino chandelier, but it is the very backbone of a world-class city. And right now, the backbone of Las Vegas is cracking under the weight of its own age and insatiable greed. When the simple act of moving through the city becomes an overpriced, soul-crushing ordeal, the dazzling allure of Sin City fades into a murky, disappointing twilight. And if you think the gridlocked highways and predatory fees are infuriating, brace yourselves. We're about to expose something far more corrosive, festering beneath the surface. We're talking about the toxic policies and catastrophic management decisions that are systematically destroying trust in Las Vegas from the inside out. Which brings us to number 3, policies that shatter trust. For decades, the entire Las Vegas empire was built on a single seductive promise. Come here and we will make you feel like royalty, even if it's just for a weekend. But in the cold light of 2025, that sacred promise has been utterly shattered, buried under a labyrinth of predatory taxes, deceptive hidden fees, and cynical management decisions that shriek of corporate avarice louder than any slot machine jackpot. And the fallout? It's been nothing short of catastrophic. Dwindling tourist numbers, a local population burned out and resentful, and now even the high-rolling investors are starting to wonder if Sin City is a losing bet. Let's begin with the most universally despised villain in this story, the resort fee. This mandatory shakedown, once a mere $10 a night, has metastasized. Today, it can soar past an unbelievable $55 per night, slapped right on top of your room rate. So that $150 room you booked? Suddenly, you're staring at a bill climbing north of $250 once they pile on parking, taxes, and their fraudulent fees. For international visitors, it's not just a bait and switch, it's a calculated deception. The optics are a complete disaster. In an era of instant online reviews and viral TikToks, a single story of being ripped off can poison the well for thousands of potential tourists, spreading like a digital plague. And then there are the taxes. Nevada's lack of a state income tax is touted as a paradise for residents, but it's a devil's bargain. It forces the government into a desperate, dangerous reliance on squeezing every last cent from tourism and hospitality. Sales taxes, gaming fees, hotel occupancy taxes, they all stack up, creating an unbearable financial burden that is crushing both guests and operators, turning Vegas into one of the most prohibitively expensive destinations on the planet. For investors, this means profit margins are being choked to death, even as the number of visitors continues to plummet. And for the tourists themselves, it means that simple burger you bought on the Strip leaves a bitter taste in your mouth once you see the final inflated bill. And unbelievably, management's blunders only pour gasoline on this fire. Resorts are desperately chasing quarterly profits by gutting their staff, jacking up fees, and replacing human interaction with cold, impersonal kiosks and glitchy apps. It's a short-sighted strategy that might save a few bucks now, but it's systematically destroying the very soul, the human connection, that once made Vegas legendary. And where are the policymakers in all this? They are shockingly complicit, failing to rein in any of these predatory practices, giving the world the unmistakable impression that this city is being run not as a global destination, but as a private ATM for faceless shareholders. Even the city's flagship infrastructure projects, like the overhyped monorail extensions and those infamous Boring Company tunnels, feel like half-baked, amateurish publicity stunts, raising the damning question of whether the city's leadership is more obsessed with generating headlines than delivering actual solutions. And the smart money is taking notice. The very hedge funds that once devoured housing by the block are now hitting the brakes. They're terrified by the explosion of foreclosures and a demand that's flatlining. Now, even convention organizers are looking to escape, eyeing cities like Dallas or Orlando where they won't be bled dry by endless predatory fees. A chilling new mantra is echoing through the industry's back channels. Vegas is gouging us for a shadow of its former self. Trust. It's the one currency Las Vegas absolutely cannot afford to squander. And yet, with every single predatory surcharge, every deceptive hidden tax, every appallingly short-sighted policy, the city is systematically demolishing the loyalty of the very people who built this empire, the tourists and the workers. But if these policies are just cracks in the foundation, the next tremor threatens to bring the whole structure crashing down. I'm talking about the seismic demographic and social shifts that are fundamentally rewriting the very definition of who would even want to live in, let alone visit, Las Vegas anymore. Point number 2, the great demographic betrayal. Las Vegas once sold a glorious fantasy, the ultimate escape, a symphony of glittering neon, endless casinos, and the intoxicating promise that anything was possible. But now, the very ground is shifting beneath its feet. The tired Sin City cliché is a grotesque mismatch for the people who actually live here, and a complete turnoff for the new generation of travelers Vegas so desperately needs. This isn't just a gap, it's a chasm, and it's widening into a truly dangerous void. First, let's confront the horrifying reality of migration. For years, Vegas rode a wave of prosperity as Californians flooded across the state line, chasing the illusion of cheaper homes and no state income tax. But now, in 2025, that vital lifeline has been squeezed to a mere trickle. With the dream of home ownership now demanding an outrageous income of $130,000 a year, the middle class has been brutally locked out. And the many who flocked here in the 2010s, they're now trapped in a gilded cage. They're imprisoned, unable to afford a better home, yet powerless to sell in a housing market that's frozen solid. All the while, a desperate exodus is underway as families flee to find some semblance of stability in states like Texas or Arizona. Places where the cost of living hasn't become a cruel joke. And the terrifying result? A demographic death squeeze, with the flow of new blood cut off, and longtime residents plotting their escape. And then there's the creeping specter of aging. Vegas, once the fabled playground for the young and the reckless, is now watching its own population grow old and gray. Its retirees, living on fixed incomes, are now the most vulnerable, being crushed by skyrocketing housing costs, crippling utility bills, and a healthcare system that's increasingly out of reach. Let's be clear, they are not the ones lining up for $25 cocktails or $200 show tickets. But here's the fatal blow. The younger generations, the millennials and Gen Z, they're not buying the hollow Vegas dream either. Crushed by student debt and valuing authentic experiences far more than gambling, they see Vegas not as some essential pilgrimage, but as a gaudy, overpriced museum piece. The data is screaming the truth. They would rather pour their money into international travel, vibrant festivals, or even speculative crypto and alternative investments than incinerate it at a blackjack table. Now throw onto this bonfire the rising tide of crime and homelessness, a crisis that is poisoning the perception of the city for both the people trapped inside and the outsiders looking in. Social media is a horrifying highlight reel of this decay. Sprawling encampments shadowing the strip, desperate souls harassing people for money, and a constant stream of tourists warning others they felt unsafe after dark. And whether it's fair or not is irrelevant. Perception becomes reality. And right now, the perception of Vegas is being savaged. All of these destructive demographic and social currents are converging on one inescapable and sobering truth. The Vegas brand isn't just eroding, it's collapsing. The city that was once a magnet for fresh waves of dreamers, gamblers, and thrill seekers now reeks of obsolescence to the young. It has become crushingly unaffordable for the middle class and fundamentally unsustainable for the elderly. The very soul of Vegas is now trapped in a terrifying limbo, ripped apart between the ghost of its past and a future that may not even exist. And all of this brings us to the ultimate, devastating question, the deepest wound of them all. Because beyond the empty hotel rooms, the foreclosures, and the fleeing tourists lies a far greater sickness. Las Vegas is staring into the abyss of a full-blown existential crisis, a battle for its very soul. This is point number one, the identity crisis. Las Vegas built its legend on reinvention. In the 1950s, it was the unapologetic playground of the mob. In the 1980s, it cynically rebranded as a family destination, complete with theme park casinos. Then, in the 2000s, it morphed again into a global capital of luxury, seducing high rollers and international tourists. But now, in 2025, the question of its identity hangs heavier than the suffocating desert heat. What in the hell is Las Vegas now? The catastrophic problem is that in its desperate attempt to be everything to everyone, it has become absolutely nothing at all. Soulless corporate giants have systematically squeezed every last drop of grit and character that once defined this town. Gone are the days of free parking and cheap shrimp cocktails. The simple comps that made an average person feel like a VIP. In their place, we have insulting $55 resort fees, outrageous $25 parking charges, and $20 cocktails. The neon still glows, but behind the facade, the magic is gone, replaced by a cold, manufactured experience. For so many, the very soul of Las Vegas has been auctioned off to the highest bidder, its spirit traded for a spreadsheet. And the evidence of this terminal identity crisis is everywhere you look. For the old guard, Vegas has become an unaffordable, hostile territory. For the next generation, it's a colossal monument to irrelevance. Why on earth would you bleed money in a casino when you can play the market on your phone or escape to Tulum for a pittance? Even the corporate conventions, once the very lifeblood of this economy, are now asking the terrifying question. Are the extortionate costs of Vegas justifiable when other cities are laying out cheaper, more welcoming red carpets? This crisis is a cancer felt by the locals too. They are haunted by the sight of empty homes and the relentless creep of foreclosure notices. They're suffocated by stagnant wages while their jobs are silently devoured by automation and clandestine layoffs. They are sold the lie of opportunity but forced to live the brutal reality of perpetual instability. This city was founded on a sacred promise, a place where anyone, absolutely anyone, could take their shot, win big, and build a life from nothing. Now, that promise is being systematically shattered. It feels like a rigged game where the odds are stacked against you before you even walk through the door. And here is the chilling, inescapable truth. If Vegas loses its identity, it signs its own death warrant. This city was never just about slot machines and stage shows. It was about the grand illusion of escape. It was about convincing people, if only for 48 hours, that they were richer, more powerful, and freer than they could ever be in their real lives. That potent fantasy built an empire in the desert. But when the tourists no longer believe in the magic, when the residents can no longer find solid ground, then the house doesn't just lose, it crumbles into dust. The catastrophic freefall we are witnessing isn't about occupancy rates or housing data. It is the agonizing spectacle of a city at war with its own soul. It's a glittering facade concealing a rotted, hollowed-out core. The ultimate final gamble for Las Vegas isn't about whether the next jackpot hits. It's whether the city can claw its way back to what it once was, before the lights go out for good. Make no mistake, Las Vegas isn't dying overnight. But the omens, the ghost town rooms, the foreclosures, the vanishing visitors, and a fractured identity are impossible to ignore. As someone who holds this city dear, my warning is dire. Vegas has to stop the predatory nickel and diming and start the Herculean task of rebuilding trust, or this death spiral will become permanent. So I put it to you, is Vegas still worth the pilgrimage, or has it tragically lost its soul to corporate greed? I demand you drop your uncensored thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this brutal breakdown forced your eyes open, and you dare not forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next harrowing deep dive into the decay of America's iconic cities.